Good evening, everyone. I'm Linsey Davis. Thank you so much for streaming with us. We begin with breaking news as we come on the air. President Trump has just signed the bill to officially reopen the government, ending the longest shutdown in U.S. history. Looking out over Capitol Hill, where the House voted to reopen the government late tonight.
On this vote, the yeas are 222, the nays are 209. The bill is passed.
This was the moment the House gavelled out after the vote. 6 Democrats voted with Republicans to reopen the government after the 43-day shutdown. The bill provides SNAP food benefits for more than 40 million Americans, but does not include Democrats' demand for an extension of health care subsidies to prevent the cost of Affordable Care Act premiums from soaring in the new year once those subsidies expire. Flight reductions at 40 of the nation's busiest airports will now hold at 6%, but travel delays could persist for several more days. Will it still impact Thanksgiving travel? So much to get to, but first, our senior political correspondent Rachel Scott leads us off from the Capitol.
The bill is passed. The motion is adopted.
Tonight, the House joining the Senate, voting to end the longest government shutdown in American history.
We're going to get the American government running again and working for the people as they deserve.
Scores of Democrats voting no, furious that 8 Senate Democrats broke ranks to make a deal with Republicans, dropping the party's demand to extend Obamacare subsidies to prevent health insurance premiums from rising for more than 20 million Americans.
It is a betrayal. It's a betrayal of working people who are seeing their health insurance premiums rise double and triple.
When the government reopens, hundreds of thousands of federal workers will soon get back pay. But federal contractors are out of luck, including Willie Joe Price, a cafeteria worker at the Library of Congress who has not gotten paid in more than 40 days.
It's hard. In the process during this shutdown, my car broke down. And it's just been things going on and on and on. And I don't have the finances to do it. Right now, everything is like in the red.
Senate Republicans also slipping in a provision that would allow Republican senators to sue the government for $500,000 if their phone records were searched without their permission by special counsel Jack Smith.
Filing a lawsuit?
Oh, definitely.
But Democrats and even Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson deeply unhappy.
Johnson, what was your reaction, though, when you saw that provision in the bill text?
I'm going to be honest. I was surprised and very frustrated.
So now the process begins of reopening the government. That means thousands of federal workers are now officially being called back to work as early as tomorrow. SNAP benefits will start to flow again for the 42 million Americans that rely on them. This deal, though, only lasts until January, and lawmakers are hoping they don't find themselves in the same position again, Linsey.
And Americans as well. Rachel, thank you. I want to bring back in Jay O'Brien, who joins us now from outside of the Capitol. Jay, walk us through why some of these 6 Democrats ultimately flipped. We know that this was not expected.
Yeah, Linsey, it was a surprising number. We expected perhaps 1 or 2 Democrats to vote with pretty much all House Republicans on this temporary government funding legislation, but 6 was a number that nobody really had on their bingo card. They are largely moderate Democrats like Jared Golden of Maine, Maria Gluesenkamp Perez of Washington State. Those are typically moderates. They've signaled their willingness to vote on temporary government funding legislation in the past, but they were also joined by Democrats like Tom Suozzi of New York. And then there's Don Davis, Democrat of North Carolina, who just spoke with reporters on the House steps not long ago. And he said he's been hearing from constituents about the pain this government shutdown has caused, and that influenced his vote. It goes without saying, Linsey, that these 6 Democrats broke with the wishes of Hakeem Jeffries and Democratic leadership, who told their members they wanted them to vote no, that this bill did not do enough to address those ACA tax credits that are set to expire at the end of this year. The animating issue for Democrats during this shutdown, House Democrats have expressed to me over the last few days that they've been angry at the Senate and those 8 Senate Democrats for cutting that deal with Republicans over the weekend that just guarantees a vote on those ACA tax credits, doesn't guarantee anything else in law. So that's why we saw the bulk of House Democrats tonight vote against this legislation, because it doesn't do enough to address health care. But that reason wasn't enough to convince these 6 who ultimately broke ranks with Hakeem Jeffries, broke ranks with Democratic leadership, and voted with Republicans, Linsey.
What does this mean now for the future of those Obamacare subsidies Democrats said that they were fighting for?
So they're set to expire officially at the end of this year. But if you're one of those 20 million or so Americans who gets their insurance through the Affordable Care Act, you may have already seen your premium estimated to double, in some cases triple, because Obamacare open enrollment began at the beginning of this month. So as people start to sign up for new insurance plans, they're looking at their premiums. And we've heard from Americans who say they are getting sticker shock. All of that to say, if these tax credits do expire at the end of this year, those premiums will lock in and you will see insurance rates skyrocket for these tens of millions of Americans. That's what Democrats say they were holding back in this shutdown to address. They were holding firm because they wanted Republicans to negotiate with them on that issue. Republicans were clear. They did not want to negotiate on health care at all while the government is shut down. Now that the government is on the path to reopening, and it will reopen by the end of tonight, it's unclear exactly what form these health care negotiations are going to take. We know in the Senate, Republicans promised Democrats, as part of that deal, a vote on these ACA tax credits. But right now, given the current vote count, we don't expect it to be successful. And also, we've heard from Republicans who say while they want to negotiate with Democrats, they're not necessarily open to a lot of the proposals that Democrats have laid bare here, including extending these tax credits for a sizable period of time without anything else attached. All of that to say, right now, there's no signs that there's a health care deal up here on Capitol Hill in sight. And it means those Americans who get their insurance through the Affordable Care Act are still very much in limbo tonight, Lindsay.
All right, Jay O'Brien, we thank you so much for your reporting tonight. House lawmakers today released emails from Jeffrey Epstein that referenced Donald Trump. The documents were obtained from the Epstein estate. It comes after Speaker Mike Johnson swore in the newest member of Congress, Arizona Democrat Adelita Grijalva, after weeks of delay. Her signature then became the final one needed in a bipartisan effort to get a vote of the full release of the Epstein files. And late today, the effort at the White House to try to convince Congresswoman Lauren Boebert to change her mind on releasing those files. Mary Bruce reports from the White House.
Tonight, in newly released emails, sex offender Jeffrey Epstein repeatedly discussing Donald Trump, shedding new light on their long friendship and seeming to suggest Trump had information he never shared. In a 2011 exchange with his co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein writing the, quote, dog that hasn't barked is Trump, adding one of his victims spent hours with Trump at Epstein's home, but that Trump has never once been mentioned. Maxwell replying, I have been thinking about that. The emails obtained from the Epstein estate were released by Democrats on the House Oversight Committee. Tonight, House Republicans and the White House say the victim mentioned was Virginia Giuffre, who once worked at Trump's spa at Mar-a-Lago. She had said she never saw Trump do anything inappropriate. She died by suicide earlier this year. Trump and Epstein were friends for more than a decade.
Have you socialized with him?
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18?
Though I'd like to answer that question, at least today, I'm going to have to assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment right, sir.
Trump insists he broke off the friendship when he learned Epstein and Maxwell were luring away women and teenage girls who worked at Mar-a-Lago.
Stole people that worked for me. I said, don't ever do that again. He did it again. And I threw him out of the place, persona non grata. I threw him out, and that was it.
In a 2019 email to author Michael Wolff, Epstein writing, Trump said he asked me to resign, never a member ever. Of course, he knew about the girls as he asked Ghislaine to stop. Maxwell is serving a 20-year sentence for sex trafficking. Sources say she's angling for a pardon. And just a few weeks ago, when Trump was asked about her, he didn't rule it out.
Who are we talking about?
Ghislaine Maxwell.
I haven't heard the name in so long. I can say this, that I'd have to take a look at it.
Tonight, Democrats say the new emails increase the pressure on the Justice Department to release the FBI's full Epstein files.
What I know today is that Donald Trump is the president, and he campaigned on releasing all the Epstein files. Obsessed about it. His vice president obsessed about it. And now the White House is involved in a massive cover-up, and we want to know why won't they release the files.
Today, I asked the White House,
in the interest of transparency, why not just go ahead, release the full files on Epstein, get this all over with? This administration has done more with respect to transparency when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein than any administration ever.
A group of House lawmakers have been circulating a petition to force a full vote to demand the Justice Department release the files. They've been one name short, House Speaker Mike Johnson refusing to swear in Arizona Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva, who was elected 7 weeks ago. He blamed the government shutdown, but today with the House back in session, Grijalva finally sworn in. And minutes later, signing the petition.
I will sign the discharge petition right now to release the Epstein files. Justice cannot wait another day.
And in another twist, the White House is trying to pressure Republicans to switch their vote on that petition today, summoning Congresswoman Lauren Boebert here to the White House to the Situation Room, where the Attorney General and the FBI director tried to convince her not to do this. But tonight she is still signed on to this effort to try and force the release of these files. And when it comes to the shutdown, we can now report that just moments ago, President Trump officially signed this bill here at the White House to reopen the government, ending the nation's longest government shutdown. Government workers now being told to report back to work tomorrow morning. Lindsay.
Reopening the government is expected to ease the chaos at America's airports, but not right away. Fewer than 1,000 flights have been canceled today. But how long will it take for airlines to fully recover from the shortage of air traffic controllers? Here's our Gio Benitez.
Tonight, for the thousands of passengers forced to navigate a maze of flight cancellations and delays, an end to the government shutdown can't come soon enough. Airlines say even when the government reopens, it could be several more days before they are fully operational.
We have had 2 cancellations today and now 3 delays, so we're feeling it.
Today, more than 900 flights were canceled, nearly 2,000 delayed. But for the first time in 2 weeks, nearly every air traffic control center in the country was properly staffed. The CEO of Delta Airlines is hopeful.
We get everybody back, we get people paid, most importantly, and by the weekend, I think things should be in good shape.
Still, some passengers worry about flying over the holidays.
We usually go away on the holidays. I think we're going to take this one off.
But airlines say there's still time to get travel back on track before the Thanksgiving rush.
We're still a good week plus away from that Thanksgiving week. So, yeah, there's still plenty of time to make sure that everything over the Thanksgiving week goes off as originally planned.
The holidays, of course, so crucial. Gio Benitez joins us now. And Gio, the FAA was planning to cut more flights. Is that still the plan?
Well, Lindsay, right now it's actually unclear when the FAA plans to lift that 10% flight cut. So we're looking at that. But once again, once the government reopens, it's actually going to take a few days to get things back to normal. So there is a lot to watch here as the government reopens.
And we know you'll be watching it for us. Gio, thanks so much. Now, the U.S. military buildup against drug cartels operating in the Caribbean. The Trump administration is targeting alleged drug boats as the massive USS Ford aircraft carrier is in the region. Now, Venezuela is ordering a nationwide military mobilization in response. Let's get right to ABC's Chief Global Affairs anchor, Martha Raddatz. Martha, what's next?
Well, Lindsay, this is the largest, most lethal aircraft carrier in the world and brings the number of U.S. forces in the waters near Latin America to 15,000. The U.S. has already carried out attacks on nearly 20 suspected drug boats, leaving more than 75 people dead. The question now is, will the carrier, which is packed with F-18 fighter jets, strike within Venezuela, or is this just a show of force? Either way, tonight, Venezuela has ordered a nationwide mobilization of 200,000 troops and is ordering the troops to plan guerrilla-style attacks. Lindsay?
Things really ratcheting up there. Martha Raddatz, our thanks to you. Now to the chain that suddenly went bankrupt. Thousands of guests were evicted without notice and told to vacate their rooms. Many are scrambling to leave before the hotels are locked down. Here's ABC's Rhiannon Alley.
Tonight, the collapse of the Marriott-backed hotel chain, leaving guests around the world stranded.
We just got evicted from our hotel here in Montreal. Now we need to figure out what we have to do for the rest of the day because our hotel just went bankrupt.
Sonder, which operates boutique hotels and apartment-style accommodations in over 40 cities, abruptly announcing on Monday that it will complete winding down operations immediately and initiate a Chapter 7 liquidation of its U.S. business, citing severe financial constraints, and a decision by Marriott to terminate their licensing agreement with the company due to, quote, default. Frustrated travelers taking to social media saying they were given less than 24 hours to vacate their rooms.
Okay, we're basically moving to another hotel right now. It's pouring outside and we don't know what to do.
Others crushed by dream vacations, now in limbo.
We decided to book kind of a once-in-a-lifetime trip for our family to go to New York. Unfortunately now, it doesn't seem like it's going to go ahead.
Our thanks to Rhiannon and Allie. Former NFL star Antonio Brown has been released on bail. During a remote hearing, Brown pleaded not guilty to a second-degree attempted murder charge stemming from an incident in May where Brown allegedly fired 2 shots at a man. Brown will remain on house arrest and will have to wear a GPS monitor. He faces a 15-year prison sentence and a fine up to $10,000 if convicted. It is the end of an era tonight as the U.S. Mint stops the production of the penny. President Donald Trump ordered the move earlier this year, citing the rising cost of making the 1-cent coin. Many stores have already phased out pennies. The coin will remain legal tender, although no new ones will be made going into the future. The first penny was minted back in 1793. Now to the major change in weather, with millions dealing with Arctic cold and the first significant snow of the season. So what comes next? Let's get right to Chief Meteorologist Lee Goldberg from our New York station WABC. Hi, Lee.
Lindsay, we are returning from the depths of December, near normal November chill coming in. So temperatures moderating, a little bit more comfortable if skies clear, and potentially a viewing of the northern lights again tonight. Won't be as brilliant, but there's a shot. We're around 50 in New York, could be at 60 in D.C. by Saturday, and how about near 70 in Cincinnati? So just normal November chill. The middle of the country is where we see the big warmth. I mean, 60s into the Dakotas, summer-like warmth, Oklahoma into Texas. But see the cooling out west. There's another atmospheric river. So Northern California starting to see some heavy rain tonight. There are high wind warnings here, gusts over 60 miles an hour. Overspreads the state tomorrow, maybe down to L.A. as we go into late Thursday night and Friday morning. 1 to 2 inches of rain will be widespread. That's also up into Washington as well. But inland snows could be up to a foot of snow in the Sierra, about a half a foot in places like Lake Tahoe. So wet in the west into the first part of the weekend. Lindsay?
All right, L to the G. Thanks so much as always. Jimmy Kimmel paid an emotional tribute to his best friend and longtime band leader, Cleto Escobedo, who passed away Tuesday morning.
We've been on the air for almost 23 years, and I've had to do some hard monologues along the way, but this one's the hardest. And even though I'm heartbroken to lose him, I'm going to take yet another lesson from him and acknowledge how lucky I was to have him literally at my side for so many years.
Kimmel says the two met as kids in Las Vegas and grew up together. Kimmel hired Cleto as band leader in 2003 when Jimmy Kimmel Live went on the air. Cleto Escobedo was 59. And still ahead, he was one of 8 Democrats who voted with Republicans to reopen the government. And just a few years ago, he was dealing with the aftermath of a stroke and didn't want to live anymore. Now he's sharing his story of survival. Our in-depth and revealing conversation with Senator John Fetterman. And it's a neighborhood surrounded by factories spewing smoke into the air. Residents believe it's making them sick. In tonight's Prime Focus, we take you inside their fight for cleaner air.
A lot of the children in this area and adults have asthma, COPD, and other health issues. It's some sort of a smell, gives you like these terrible migraine headaches. Then you're struggling to breathe. You know, you get lightheaded, you lick your lips, they're salty from the chemicals and dirt. It's just insane.
Plus, instead of grabbing your passport out of your carry-on, you can just flash your phone, the new digital ID that could save you some time at TSA. He nearly decided to take his life in the days after a stroke in the middle of his Senate campaign. Tonight, 3 years later, Pennsylvania Democratic Senator John Fetterman is talking about his battle with depression. His new book, Unfettered, is now available. We're in bookstores. We caught up with him yesterday, just hours after that key Senate vote to reopen the government. He was one of those 8 Democrats to sign with Republicans to reopen the government. Here's our in-depth conversation. And we are grateful to be joined by Pennsylvania Democratic Senator John Fetterman. Senator, thank you so much for your time. Congratulations on your book, Unfettered. Your memoir is dedicated to anyone with depression, and you talk quite candidly in the book about your struggles after your own stroke, including how you nearly jumped off of a bridge. But you write that things are different now, saying 3 years ago, I wondered if jumping was the only answer. I paused for a second, as I once did. Then I realized the most wonderful thing of all, it's just another bridge. I keep going. What specifically keeps you going today?
Oh, yeah. I mean, honestly, like I'm the luckiest guy alive right now. Honestly, you know, I died from my stroke. My heart stopped, and now, like, I probably shouldn't even be alive. But now I'm able to serve in the Senate. You know, I have a beautiful family, a great wife, and 3 great kids. I mean, that's easy. That's easy for me. And now, you know, having a conversation about depression, and really the really dangerous part of that, and that's taking your life. I think it's my way to pay it forward to have this conversation about depression and ultimately self-harm.
You say after the stroke, your depression broke your wife, Giselle. What has her support meant to you through the years?
Oh, I mean, of course, she's the ultimate partner. I mean, she's the mother of my children. I'm so lucky for a lot of different reasons right now. You know, being in this chair right now, getting to have this conversation, it's a testament to 3 years ago. I was in the throes of depression after I just won the biggest election in the cycle. And now here, I'm able to talk about this. And I hope this conversation, as they've shared with me that they've decided not to take their lives or to get help. And now, so that's the reason why I'm doing. So I'm just profoundly grateful.
How does it feel now that your very personal and vulnerable thoughts are out there for everyone to read?
Oh, well, it's like it has to be honest, and it has to be just really just straight up and transparent. It's a difficult topic. Many people don't want to talk about it, and they certainly don't want this to touch their lives personally or with someone that they love. So more and more people can be honest and have a dialogue on this, a big part of why I chose to do this book.
What would you say has surprised you most about the job?
People assume that it's really super glamorous and thing, you know? And like, for example, I have a 300 square apartment, and I do a lot of traveling, and it's really it's an honor. But it's like we're confronted very, very big ones, but we actually have, at least I do, I have a very simple existence here in Washington, D.C. You know, I miss my children, and I miss my wife, of course, but it's not a glamorous one, but it is an important one, and it's absolutely an honor to be a part of this conversation.
You write in your book, we need to start talking to one another. Doing so will not represent a betrayal. It will be a start to the process of America healing and finding common ground. Of course, you were the first Democratic senator to meet with President Trump. Would you say that he seeks common ground?
It's sometimes, perhaps, yeah, absolutely. You know, one of the reasons why, after he invited me to join him for dinner, was we both experienced, you know, near-death experiences. I mean, he was shot in the head in my state, and thank God it didn't actually turn out to be fatal. You know, and then I nearly died from my stroke, and now that near-death experience really changed me, and I wanted to just say, hey, how has changed you after you were shot? So we had a nice conversation. You know, hopefully we could find some kind of common ground. Sometimes he's done, you know, I supported those things, but many of those things I happen to disagree with him, and that's why that continues.
You also write, there is no sanctity left in the present U.S. Congress. What do you see as the problem and as the fix?
Oh, well, I'm not the guy that can fix it, because the Congress is going to be Congress. But right now we have to find a way forward. You know, that's really undeniable right now. And now the political violence or the kinds of rhetoric a lot of those things that I refuse to engage in and calling, people that have different kinds of views, like fascists or they're Nazis, or they're trying to destroy our democracy. Because the people that voted for them, I happen to know those people and love many of those people. And those aren't the kinds of people that, in those terms, are absolutely not accurate and should only be reserved to the actual real peoples that's appropriate.
Lastly, Senator, if there's something that keeps you up at night, what might that be?
It's not so much keeps me up at night, but I know is that I do believe I want to be, I'm just so grateful, honestly. I mean, yes, I know people get caught up in the doom scrolling and just all the negativity and afraid to pick up their phones and those things. And that's why I try to remind. It's like be kinder and just realize that we need each other and choose a different option, versus going to the extreme. And those kinds of extreme terms or those terms kinds of names, that leads to more and more political violence as we continue to witness.
Senator John Fetterman, we thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. His book, Unfettered, is now available wherever books are sold. And if you or someone you know is struggling or in crisis, help is available at 988lifeline.org, or you can call or text 988. And still ahead, our look at one of the most polluted cities in the country and the fight to change it, and much more from Capitol Hill. Welcome back, everyone. Southwest Detroit, it's home to many refineries and coal-burning power plants. It's also home to thousands of residents, many whom suffer from respiratory issues like asthma. And they believe it's connected to the pollutants in the air. Some are taking a creative approach to get the word out and push for policy change. ABC's Samara Theodore takes us inside Michigan's most polluted zip code.
I moved to Michigan in 1996. I had a daughter. I moved here pregnant with my son. And, it wasn't my intentions to migrate here for 26 years, but it just kind of ended up happening.
When Thomasenia Weston left New Jersey for Illinois, she was hoping to find a better life. Not knowing much about the area, she settled near family in Southwest Detroit. At first, she thought they would be safe.
I've always had asthma, but when I moved here, it became much worse. It went to medications like Symbicort, Advair, getting a breathing machine, using the albuterol inhalant solution. Every time you go to pulmonologist, you have to do breathing tests and walking tests, and I was failing them. Breathe out.
Thomasenia's 2 kids also have asthma and trouble breathing. They've been told because of the exposure to particles in the air. She then realized they weren't the only ones getting sick.
A lot of the children in this area and adults have asthma, COPD, and other health issues. It's some sort of a smell, gives you like these terrible migraine headaches. Then you're struggling to breathe. You get lightheaded. You lick your lips. They're salty from the chemicals and dirt. It's just insane.
Southwest Detroit is home to more than 150 facilities that emit potentially dangerous chemicals, possibly creating health risk. Refineries, coal-burning power plants, steel mills, water treatment plants, all adjacent to neighborhoods that are also home to more than 100,000 people. In this area, also the busiest crossing bridge in America is the Ambassador Bridge, connecting the U.S. to Canada. Approximately 8,000 trucks cross this bridge every day. Back in the 20th century, this area was one of the few in Detroit where Black Americans fleeing Jim Crow's South were allowed to live. Little by little, it became one of the most industrialized zones in the Motor City and the most polluted zip code in Michigan. Thomasenia says on top of the proximity to the plants and the bridge, her residential street also became a truck route.
I want to say the trucks started increasing maybe in the year of 2012. Couldn't even rest, no. Between the smell and the vibrations and, the accumulation of dirt.
And now, a new bridge is set to open up. The soon-to-be inaugurated Gordie Howe Bridge is expected to significantly increase the truck and car traffic between Detroit and Canada. Just 3 miles south of the Ambassador Bridge, the route will also go through southwest Detroit. Scientists from the University of Michigan have been studying this area and monitoring the air quality.
Particulate matter and ozone are the pollutants that we're most concerned about. These can cause a number of different types of diseases. They can cause respiratory disease, hypertension, asthma, cancer, neurological effects. Air pollution in this part of Detroit and in the Detroit area is responsible for some 600 to 700 early deaths.
Dr. Stuart Batterman, a professor of environmental health sciences at the University of Michigan, thinks there is still a way to improve air quality in this area.
This can be done by substituting cleaner processes, eliminating combustion sources where you can, putting on controls to bring down levels, using vegetation to help green the city and absorb some of the pollutants, and essentially using all the tools at our disposal to reduce emissions.
A lot of people for years, way before me, have been vocal about, can you fix the situation? Can we have the right to breathe? Can we get some sleep? Can we enjoy our homes? And it just seems like no one has said no, but at the same time, you're not doing anything about it.
Right next to their company are homes, right next to it. They share an alleyway, they share a driveway.
We took part in the locally famous Toxic Tour, a program started by residents of this area to educate their neighbors.
We have all this dirty oil that's being recycled.
Senior centers, schools, fishing areas sit on the edges of facilities that spew potentially dangerous chemicals.
We're seeing now a great many trucks come in. The truck activity is increasing here, and of course,
although there's no concrete proof that these plants are causing higher rates of disease, the locals do believe there is a connection.
In my household, we have 4 people, my immediate family members, who have had tumors removed. But we're lucky because we're alive, right? My neighbor has no breasts, okay? She's had a double mastectomy. She's lucky because she's alive. Another neighbor died of breast cancer. To my right, my neighbor's dad, he died of kidney cancer. What's the cost of a human life to you all? I'm really at the point where we're all fed up. We need comprehensive accountability measures put into place. We need supplemental environmental projects. We need all the money from penalties to come back to impacted communities.
The current system allows regulatory agencies to review polluters one at a time, not taking into consideration the pollution coming from the facilities around them.
The high blood pressure, kidney damage, different cancers.
Advocates and residents are asking for the government to look at the cumulative impact before issuing new permits or renewing existing ones. We reached out to the Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy Department of the state of Michigan, responsible for regulating air pollutant sources in the state.
When a facility applies for a permit, we are using all of the rules and regulations that apply to do an evaluation and then set emission limits to make sure we're being protective of public health. There's nothing in the Clean Air Act that allows us to dictate where a facility can set up shop.
We reached out to the EPA in Michigan, but they referred us back to the Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy Department. At a federal level, under President Trump, the EPA announced in March it had launched, quote, the biggest deregulation in U.S. history, including actions that could eliminate limits on greenhouse gas emissions from cars, trucks, and factories, and has proposed a rollback of the policies that regulated air pollution nationwide.
Like I said, I'm not rich. You just can't pick up and leave. I often feel like a hostage. No one would live like this. No one. You shouldn't have to live like this.
The city has made some recent changes, like limiting larger trucks from driving through some of the residential streets. But for residents in Southwest Detroit, it's just the beginning of the change they want to see.
This situation needs to stop because it's killing us. I am 51 currently. I want to be 60, 70, 100, but I don't think that's going to happen in this area because every time I go to the doctor, it seems like I got something new going on. It's just on and on and on and on and on, and it's unnecessary to have to live that way.
So many hoping for change. Our thanks to Samara for that. Coming up, documentarian Ken Burns is here. His new PBS series, The American Revolution, starts this week with new research, insights, and competing views that challenge our often sentimental take on our country's founding. And restrictions on where you can take Waymo robo-taxis are loosening. where you'll soon find them. JFK's grandson announces a run for office, why you may no longer need to pull out your passport at TSA, and where you can see the Northern Lights again tonight. These stories and more in tonight's rundown. Jack Schlossberg, the grandson of former President John F. Kennedy, announced he is running for Congress in 2026. Schlossberg said he would seek a seat representing New York's 12th congressional district, which is currently held by Representative Jerry Nadler, who announced in September that he will not run for re-election. Schlossberg positioned his run as a response in part to the economic agenda put forth by Republicans and President Donald Trump. The political heir and Yale and Harvard alum is running as a Democrat. You can now digitize your passport through the new Apple Digital ID, allowing you to securely store your passport information in your phone's wallet. You can then use your digital ID at more than 250 airports nationwide as a form of identification to pass through TSA checkpoints. However, this is not a passport replacement, and passengers still need to present a passport at immigration and wherever else they're required by law. Driverless taxis could soon be coming to a freeway near you. Waymo announced today that its self-driving vehicles have received the green light to offer rides on San Francisco Bay Area, Phoenix, and Los Angeles freeways. A select group of riders will have freeway access before the option expands. Riders must sign up to get access to freeway rides through the Waymo app. The Red Heels are back. Today we got a first look at the Ice Queen herself, Miranda Priestly, played of course by Meryl Streep, and her fashionista frenemy Anne Hathaway as Andy Sachs in a new teaser trailer for The Devil Wears Prada 2.
Miranda? Took you long enough?
The hotly anticipated sequel is set to release next year, 20 years after the first movie hit theaters. Actors Emily Blunt and Stanley Tucci will also reprise their roles. Singer-songwriter Adele is set to make her debut on the silver screen. The 16-time Grammy winner was cast in fashion designer Tom Ford's upcoming adaptation of Anne Rice's novel Cry to Heaven. Ford is also writing the screenplay for the story set in 18th century Italy and is self-financing the movie after selling his fashion label to Estee Lauder for nearly $3 billion in 2023. Adele joins an all-star cast including Nicholas Hoult, Thandiwe Newton, Paul Bettany, and Mark Strong. After green and pink displays of auroras lit up the sky Tuesday night, another northern light array is expected to bring a gleaming light show to northern part of the U.S. tonight. The auroras are being caused by one of the strongest geomagnetic storms of the year, which occurs when electrons from the sun collide with Earth's magnetic field to produce colored lights and can be visible in 24 states tonight, according to NOAA's Aurora Viewline map. The best time to see it is between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. He is one of America's most beloved directors. Ken Burns has produced more than 30 documentaries with PBS and now has a new 12-hour series, The American Revolution, which takes a fresh look at our country's founding and how it turned the world upside down in the 1700s and since. Let's take a look.
We think about independence movements of the 20th century. You don't always recognize the fact that the United States actually started that.
The American Revolutionary Movement served as a model for freedom from oppression.
America is predicated on an idea that tells us who we are, where we came from, and what our forebears were willing to die for.
Ken Burns, great to have you back on the show. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay.
So many Americans would argue that we are more divided now than ever before. Given what you've seen in your deep dive into the American Revolution, you disagree?
I disagree. We're really divided then. I think we think that the revolution is about men in Philadelphia thinking great thoughts. And that is a big, big part of it. And they're big thoughts and they change the world. But this is a bloody revolution. It is a bloody civil war. And it is a global war over the prize of North America, contending with native nations and with not only Britain, but their German hirelings and France and Spain and the Dutch. So it's a very bloody war. And I think we don't appreciate just how long it was and how difficult it was to achieve what we now take for granted.
And I think that for many Americans, we initially think about the American Revolution being about one thing primarily, but right off the bat, you really get into the idea that it was a global issue, and the American Revolution was really just a small part of that.
So the Brits have 26 colonies. Who knew that? I didn't going into that. Our 13 are the least profitable. The profitable ones are the ones in the Caribbean that have 90% slaves. And so there's a very complicated dynamic of Britain trying to protect its interests, Spain and France vying for it, native peoples hoping to forestall the takeover of their land. And so we find ourselves in argument with our own parents, in essence. Home is 3,000 miles away over taxes and representation, and whether they're going to let us take that Indian land. They can't afford for us to go in because they can't afford to protect us. And then all of a sudden, these disagreements over British law become broken out into universal truths. It's the Enlightenment. So all of a sudden we're saying all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that changes everything, not just for the white people it was intended for, but people at the margins, as the scholar Maggie Blackhawk says. Good history is always thinking it might not turn out the way you know it did, so that you're back in their idea of contingency. And even when the French come in to help us, George Washington, after the fall of Charleston by the British, is not sure. And I remember watching an episode while we were editing and going, oh yeah, are we going to make it? You know, and then we do.
You mentioned George Washington as it pertains to the monuments and dollar bills. Many people know him as a founding father, as commander of the Continental Army, the first president, but he was also known to be pretty brutal in battle. What else did you discover about him?
He's rash on the battlefield. He rides out and risks his life, and if he's captured or if he's killed, the cause is over. He makes some pretty bad tactical mistakes at the Battle of Long Island, the biggest battle of the war, and then later at Brandywine, and some would say Germantown, and yet he's able to inspire people in the dead of night to fight. He convinces somebody from Georgia and Massachusetts that they're not from separate countries, which they thought, but they're this new thing called Americans. He's deferential to Congress. He knows how to pick subordinate talent, but more than anything else, he gives up his power twice. First his military power, and then his presidential power, setting in motion this American tradition of the peaceful transfer of power. And when George III, the English king, heard that he had resigned the presidency after giving up his military commission many years before, he said then he is the greatest character of the age.
Lastly, I just have to say, we're out of time, but your enthusiasm is so... it comes across, and you've been working on this project for about 10 years at this point. Do you feel that this timing that it's coming out is really poignant?
I think so. You know, we started this when Barack Obama had 13 months to go in his presidency. So we were not planning. Nobody was talking 250. But as it arrives here, as we describe ourselves as divided, I think we've made something for everyone, and that maybe this helps put the us back in the U.S. It's a story we can all share. Everyone, regardless of political orientation, regardless of age or wealth or station or sex or location in the country, this is our story. And we've tried to be just umpires calling balls and strikes. This is what happened. I cannot wait to share this with everyone because I think it could help.
Our hearts are pumping right along with you. Thank you so much, Ken Burns, for coming back on the show. The American Revolution, created by Ken Burns, written by Jeffrey Ward, and co-directed with Sarah Botstein and David Schmidt, premieres this Sunday on PBS and will air for 6 consecutive nights through Friday, November 21st, and streams on pbs.org for free. And that is our show for this hour. I'm Linsey Davis. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thanks so much for streaming with us.